aka Swampy. It is a true pleasure for you to be on MoxieTalk with Kirt Jacobs. Like I said in the earlier part of the intro, you're our 474th guest, and welcome to MoxieTalk with Kirt Jacobs. Quite a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Thank you, Kirt.
Appreciate it.
Here.
Well, you know, you've got a pretty eclectic background, motivational speaker, environmental advocate. You've done some filmmaking. You consider yourself a concept artist. What drives you to excel in your human journey? It's pretty eclectic, in my opinion.
Yeah, thanks, Kirt. I'll just kind of give you some of the main points.
Sure.
You're talking about someone. I lost my mom at 12, my father at 1. I spent 6 years in an orphanage. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting thing when you don't really have like a normal family, okay? Yeah. But the different aspects of that. But it's like, how did I get there from here? So what I'm telling you right now is building a story of passion, okay? To reach out to all that are out there. They may be young, they don't know what to do, they may be disabled, etc. I want to be a compelling force of encouragement from them. Mm-hmm. Basically using creativity. I think we're both creatives, Kirt. I think that's a really neat thing. And you'll find that really out about me. But yeah, I spent 6 years in an orphanage. I was able to get a degree in forestry. I later became involved with wetlands. You guys will find out about that. And then I was married for 28 years. I've got 3 grandkids.
That's great.
And 2 kids. So that's been a great thing. But the main thing is I keep pinching myself, right? Mm-hmm. How can I be doing all these neat things? Also, outside of that, I got a couple of compelling stories that I want to share with you guys. One of which, when I was at the orphanage, I'm writing a book about it. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s when we had somebody named Muhammad Ali and Elvis Presley back in the day.
Yes.
And I was on a show called T-Barbie Ranch Time, right? So very familiar with Kentucky and Louisville. So that being said, that's one thing. When I was at the orphanage, I'm writing a book about it. I did something stupid. I did a dare. I told everybody, guess what? I'm going to jump on this train that was going in front of me, right? Uh-huh. And I'm like, I can do that because there won't be an open boxcar, right? Well, guess what? There was an open boxcar. So that's one of my stories in 6 years at the orphanage. The other thing is I was able to work for the state regulating the coal industry for 12 years. And I learned a lot about regulation. And then also during that time period, I got hit by a 41-ton rock truck outside of Lexington.
How are you still alive?
Still here. So it's been an interesting journey about how I was, Kirt, before this, and how I transitioned and changed to a new way of being. And I want to share that with young people and elders as well. And that's basically a few of the big points. Also, you mentioned I have produced a film as a film producer. I've written a book. Yeah. And I've worked for FEMA. I've worked for the federal government, the state of Kentucky, the Commonwealth, and also for the Lexington government as an urban planner, and also for profit. So got a lot of different experiences here, but I want to focus the main points about how I looked at those, Kirt, and then how I resolved and became a better me.
What do you consider to be the passion, I guess, behind all of this? You touched upon it, but I mean, I'm just fascinated. We get a lot of requests to come on the program, and I'm very selective about who we have on. And I'm fascinated because of your childhood until now. Why? And no offense to environmentalists, nobody take it that way,
right?
But an environmental advocacy is a very I wouldn't say controversial, that's not fair, but it's an arduous uphill battle.
Exactly.
To get people's attention, to get funding, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So that's kind of what I thought I'd like to see you speak to as well.
Yeah, and again, it goes back. A lot of people are they're really anxious about today when they talk about climate change. Okay, and people don't really realize that in our generation, in the 60s and the 70s, we had some major environmental challenges, but we took action primarily under the Nixon administration that we created regulation like the Clean Water, Clean Air Act, right? Yeah. NEPA. And we took action. And a lot of people don't really realize, okay, that we've already done this before. So that's also Kirt, one of my missions is to assure people that whether we're dealing with clean water, climate, wetlands, biodiversity, the Amazon, some of these different areas, that we can do this using good science.
Who do you credit most influential in your life, Kent? I mean, it can be personal, professional. You know, you had the unfortunate circumstance or blessing. I think it depends on your context of what happened with your parents at a young age. Whom do you credit most influential in your life?
Well, I'm going to say I'm a spiritual man, so I would say Jesus Christ is what I was raised, and also I was raised on the Old Testament God as well, Yahweh. And so that was primarily, I got a good understanding for that. But my main focus was my mom, Kirt. I was very close to my mom. We had 4 kids in my family, and they always got mad because mom liked me best, right? So
now, where were you in the birth order? Excuse me. Where were you in the birth order?
I was the baby.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was the baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they like to pick on the baby, right? But I missed her. And I never knew my dad, obviously, at 1. Okay. So she was really important. I just always wanted to do the best that she would always be proud of me. Okay. But really, I'm thinking of a couple of different people outside that. I'm a big fan of Teddy Roosevelt. Okay.
Oh, me too. Me too.
He just did so much. He's, you know, whether you're talking about writing or going out, they once told him that he was a sick child and that he would never be able to get out of his bed because he was so sickly. So what did he do? He got out, he started crossing rivers out west, right? So that's San Juan Hill. You know, I just really admire him.
Yeah, that's something. I like that. What do you consider to be, and this is a great dovetail into this next question, what do you consider to be your most defining moment, Kent? And again, it can be more than one, personal or professional.
Yeah, I think my most defining moment was creating Swampy. Because Kirt, as we both know in social media and marketing, okay, it's an interesting thing when you create an idea and then you want to expand upon that and market that idea.
Right.
And then it gets back to do you have enough support? And I'm talking here mostly financial in general. Right. And then also mentors, okay, like you've done with your great videos. And it's been a progression thing. So I've learned a lot, you know. But I think that's the main thing, is coming up with an eye, looking back at it. And I'll tell you a funny story later on about the creation of Swampy that's absolutely hilarious. Okay. But yeah, taking an idea and being a creative. I'm overly creative. I'm like Walt Disney. Okay. I don't know where to start. It's a lot of fun though. It's creatives know.
Well, you know, speaking of creatives, and you know, I want to mention this part because I think sometimes creatives, you know, we live in a world where I would say we reward more analytical, linear thinking. And so when you, especially like with my background, when you leave a world of commercial real estate and numbers and fairly analytical thought, and you say you want to do this, you really know who your friends are and the people that care about you when you make a transition like that. And of course, if you're successful, then everybody just assumes that's what was supposed to happen. But, you know, there's a lot of, you know, they don't see the road work, as Ali used to say. You know, they don't see all the back part. They just see this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you consider to be your biggest triumph and biggest regret, if you will, in your human journey? You
well, I'm going to also outside of creating Swampy. The other thing is I've had a life of being able to accept challenges, and they've been really stressful sometimes.
Sure.
This was an example when I worked for the state regulating the coal industry. I took some of the most controversial, problematic coal mining permits and looked at those and got those passed through, protecting the environment. Okay. Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing is, as I talked about, you may have known me, I survived the 41-ton rock truck. And just the processes that I went through that before I got into that, Kirt, a lot of people think, so, okay, what if that happened to me? Where would I be? Well, you can't really talk to too many people. And in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I remembered, is this heaven? Is this hell? Is this purgatory? Is it reincarnation? You know? And I've always used good science. I'm a big on science as a scientist. And I'm also big on faith and history and knowing, you know, where I am in space and time and trying to discern what is real and what is my ego. What am I making up to be? So some great stories I want to share with folks, Kirt. Thanks for letting me be a part of this today.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't want to segue, and the Moxie Talk's obviously focused on you, but I didn't get hit by a 41 ton truck or whatever the case might be, but I did fall off a water tower from underage drinking, and I don't know how I did it and survived. And I shattered both of my lower leg bones in half. They didn't come out of the skin when I was 16. And that was kind of my testimony, if you will. And when I found God and changed my life, I was probably headed down a pathway. I probably would not have lived much longer. I was using alcohol to entertain myself and others. And
right.
And so when that happened, that was a huge wake up call. I do have a casual drink, social drink, but I didn't drink 3 years after that. And at that age, going to college and whatnot, it was a big deal. So I knew it happened for a reason. What do you consider to be your biggest mistake? I used to use the word regret or disappointment, but I think if people are self-aware and they're honest in their human journey, it really, I wouldn't say irritates me, and it's not for me to judge, but when people say, oh, I haven't had any mistakes, I don't have any regrets. I'm like, well, did you really think about the things you've done in life? I mean, I'm sure you've hurt somebody. I know I have. You've hurt somebody's feelings, or you could have gone left when you went right. Hindsight's pretty good.
I want to share this with you. I went through some hard times. I was homeless for a little bit and did some other things. I got to the point I was working in an Amazon warehouse. And as I was picking the products, I saw there's this one book that everybody was picking. It was called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And it basically, in a lot of ways, it saved my life. Because the one thing I'd learned that I wish I'd learned in high school that kids do not learn is the point of becoming present. I spent all this year always responding to something in front of a decision. And when I actually read the book, it allowed me to become present. And what I mean by that is, given a choice to make a decision on a fork, we'd have no choice if we want to change our life to choose our new way of being, because our decisions automatically default on the amygdala, which is programmed to our history, right? So if I don't like something, and I wasn't thinking about becoming present, I would automatically, frustratingly choose the same way, rather than becoming present, stepping outside of myself, taking the time, taking a breath, and seeing, do I really want to do it this way I used to be, or choosing a different path? So that's kind of real something that I want to share for a lot of people that I wish that I'd known earlier, Kirt.
So can you give an example, and you've probably given it some thought, a fairly succinct example where you weren't present, and if you had been present, it would have made a better outcome or been a different path, so to speak?
Yeah, and Kirt, I think, again, we both know this, having had some both in a similar type of pathway. My thing is, we have these ideas and the creativities, and we really never know which opportunity, will actually come around that will be a game changer.
Right.
And a lot of times when I grew up and would say something not knowingly, being a part of the other folks around me, I was not familiar with the way to act and connect with people, that I believe that's one of the things that I didn't have a mom and dad. I didn't really have a lot of peer support. So I had to do a lot myself. So for me, that was probably, I said certain things and turned people off rather than focusing on them, rather than what I was doing, connecting with them first, and being present and being thankful and gratitude, and not getting so frustrated and being down, and I think we do that through gratitude. So
yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. What I want to bring this up now and just kind of add it in as its own standalone question. And I'm sure you've thought about it. These questions I give in advance for this very reason. Someone watching this program, is an orphan. I don't mean adopted. I mean, they're raised in an orphanage. They never known their parents for whatever reasons. In this case, I believe you didn't know your father, you knew your mother, and then tragically she was gone at 12, which I would argue in some ways is maybe worse. I'm sure someone would say never knowing it was worse, but what advice would you give to someone watching this that's in a similar situation? and how to build their own identity and life and purpose, and so that they don't take it upon themselves to maybe look at like the gods or the world's out to get them, so to speak.
You know, I've got a great response, because when you said that, I mean, spirit came to me. Sure. I want to share something with you when I got hit by the 41-ton rock truck. And I was in the hospital and coming in and out of consciousness. And while I was there in the bed, I had a wife, I had 2 kids. Everybody was concerned whether I was alive or dead.
Sure.
And I'm laying there and I'm like, I thought, I may never return back to the way I used to be. And when I did that, during the period that I was there, I asked myself this question: is what I'm doing today important or not? Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I had these experiences where I thought something that was unimportant was important, okay, and just vice versa, okay. What I thought was or wasn't, and vice versa. So I leave that with you as far as a personal experience coming from, I call it the shadowlands, kind of between the light and the dark, and you never know what's important today. Mm-hmm. So if you can be kind to a stranger, that's a great thing. I have a great quote from one of my mentors. His name was Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Okay.
Guess what, yeah. Kurt? I went on a cruise with Wayne Dyer.
Did you really?
I did. And
that's
people
great.
thought that because I kind of look a little bit like him, you know?
Yeah, you do.
I had 4 women want me to sign their books.
There you go. What he said, and maybe more than that, but it's not that kind of show. But go ahead.
Exactly. Well, you know, he was on PBS and he's always getting very inspirational. He wrote a great book in the 70s called Your Erroneous Zones. But I'm like, the one thing that he said, given a choice between right and kindness, choose kindness. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I really felt that I wanted to share in this talk today.
You know, it's funny, and I'll maybe extrapolate for a moment on this. I didn't realize I was doing this. So every guest that comes on, if I can do it within reason, sadly, when they pass on, and I can, if they're in this region of the country where we film predominantly, of course, now with virtual, you know, they're not always near me. I make an effort to go to their visitation and or their funeral. And, you know, a lot of them I don't know that well, but I can tell you, after having lost both of my parents, you do remember who shows up and who doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you can't really say anything about it, but my point is, because then you get petty and dramatic, but what I'm getting at is that's what kindness is. And, you know, a lot of times going to a funeral on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. until 1 in the afternoon is not convenient. You know, your whole work day is destroyed.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and you can be real selfish, you know, and tell yourself, I didn't really know Chuck that well, but yeah, he was on my show and this is my little self-invented, you know, rule of thumb. But I tell you, people remember, and I don't mean it like, oh, I'm a great guy, pat me on the back. I think there's a spiritual karmic thing by doing those kind of things where they're not always convenient, but they're the right thing to do and the kind thing to do. And you don't always often know who sees you there or not, because you don't always talk to a lot of people if they don't.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
You don't really know the family. And then the other thing I try to do, and we'll move on, is I make sure that they're, as much as I'd love to believe that everyone watches our show, and especially now with the burgeoning of video content, you know, everywhere, 24/7, it never turns off and it's in our palm of our hands. I tell people, hey, you know, I sat down with Kent back in such and such year. I don't know if you're aware of it. I'm going to send you the link. And then usually about a month, 2 months, once the dust settles, if you ever lost anyone, people know what that means. Mm-hmm, coming up for air, they'll watch it and they'll go, I never knew, you know, my father or brother or sister or mother had done this or that. And I can't thank you enough for sharing with me. I just didn't know they had done this, you know, the show.
Right.
So that's a more extrapolated answer, or example, I should say, of kindness. So, you know, because
yeah, exactly.
Catholic funeral, it's long.
Yeah. There's a great movie, by the way, Kurt. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the Remarkable or the Incredible Life of Benjamin Buttons.
Oh yes, it's a great movie.
Yeah. Isn't that great? Like you're talking about time, and if this had happened, if that had happened, etc.
Right.
So exactly, yeah.
What do you consider to be your hardest life lesson? I think in some ways maybe you touched upon it, but I want to dedicate a specific question and time allotted to that. You know, it can be more than one. It could be personal and professional. Again, I think if people are self-aware and honest, they have them.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to think that for me was, you know, I had this aspiration. Okay, here I'm in the orphanage 6 years. What am I going to do with my life when I get out? We were protected from the outdoors. We weren't allowed to interact with other kids going to schools outside the home. And I thought, what am I going to do later on with my life when I don't have this, that, or the other, like I saw the other kids that had, right? So what I'm thinking about doing that was, you know, I've got to focus on what my mission will be. But I want to get, you know, I wanted to go to college. I went to 2 years at Murray State. I went to 3 years at UK. I graduated, got a Bachelor of Science in Forestry. Then I went to Kentucky State, got a Master's in Public Administration.
That's beautiful.
And I'm kind of an IT geek, dude. So if you have any questions, let me know as well.
Okay. That's great. That's great. No, that's pretty remarkable. And I'm just out of curiosity, again, if someone's watching this with your background as an orphan or growing up in an orphanage years ago, decades ago, or currently, when they watch this, do you keep in touch with any of your contemporaries, if you will, from that era, or did everybody just kind of like rats leaving the ship? It's a terrible example. Everybody just kind of did their own thing.
Wow, that's a great question, because guess what? Very conveniently, we recently had our reunion.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And yeah, we had about 40 kids from our generation. The previous generation we had, they had their own way of being. And later on, the 60s, what we call the more of the revolution, the baby boomers. Yeah, during that, entirely different. Yeah, different than the Trumans, the golden years, the black and white years, right?
Right.
So we were different, and a lot of us had lots of really anxiety.
Sure.
But actually, to come back through this entire period, how some people, they didn't want to talk about the orphanage, Kirt. But then over a period of time, as they mellowed, okay, more of the younger people have come back. And we've had some engaging times. We've had some hilarious stories. A lot of kids didn't want to be there, Kirt. So guess how we battled being there for that time? We made fun of stuff. We played games. We picked on each other. You may have seen the Three Stooges, okay? We built animal forts. We had a huge tornado come into 1974.
Oh God, I remember. I was a little bitty. I was not far from it. Yes, go ahead.
Oh yeah, destroyed Louisville. Yeah. And it touched down at our property. Okay. And I was coming back from Wagner. I played football and I was walking home, and then I heard the sound of a train. I saw the sky get green. Okay. And I'm like, that's later on to some degree. I worked for FEMA, by the way. And part of the reason I enjoy going to disasters and helping people out, I was there in Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Wilma in South Florida. So it's been a great way to go there and help people out. And you can see some sites there, but it's really important because you have a lot of entropy damage. And our job was to come in under the Stafford Act and get things straight and help people. And I really gained a lot. I really valued that, Kirt, as far as giving back.
So did you go down to Katrina back in 2005 when all that was going on?
You know, I did.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, after this, the FEMA got a bad name because of Katrina over in Louisiana and Mississippi, right?
Right. The trailer. So grab my water. Go ahead.
Yeah. After that occurred, they put us in a FEMA university when we got basically schooled for 2 weeks. And then they sent us out in the front of Hurricane Wilma.
Okay.
And Wilma was a dry hurricane, whereas Katrina was a wet hurricane.
Right.
But I landed boots on the ground in South Florida, okay, right after it had come through. My buddy, he wanted to get away from the place the next day. He didn't like the neighborhood. I put on my running shoes and started running in the neighborhood, right? So I was able to share a little bit about South Beach, my friend.
What do you consider to be the best piece of advice ever given to you? Not so much as an orphan, like we talked about earlier, or being raised in an orphanage in your adolescent years, but what's the best piece of advice you could offer anyone? You know, personal, professional, can be more than one.
I think the best thing is for me, I'm a creative soul.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't really talk about this thing that with gift we call creativity.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it.
When you're quartered, you know how it is. And like I'm saying, left brain, right brain, okay, the creative people, it's a gift. We do not think more pragmatic, like you said earlier, okay? We are a little bit more, I always like to tell engineers, okay, operate on straight lines, right?
Yeah,
Formulas,
right.
equations. When I became a biologist, okay, it was just the opposite. It was curvilinear, okay? So that's a real skill when you can operate in the midst, okay, of a quandary, okay, or a hurricane, and use your past skills and your people skills, value people. So my thing is creativity and finding ways to do things better and to make shortcuts without looking at quantity versus quality and the impacts that it has on that.
That's great. When was the, as I call it, the aha moment? You can apply this question, Kent, to different stages or chapters of your life. You can really interpret it however you want. When was the aha moment that took you on this path that's now become your human journey? That could be with the environmental advocacy or being a motivational speaker. You know, you made a film, you made something out of yourself, you know, you have a family, grandchildren. You know, when was the aha moment? I think anyone who's honest with themselves knows when it happened. I know when mine was for this program, but again, I want to focus on you. So
yeah, very cool. And I guess the best way to share that with my aha, I have a link tree and it kind of shows you what happened, but my response to that would be the creation of Swampy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't tell you that, but working for the state, we had to review the coal mining permits. Somebody wants to mine for coal. We had to look at the geology, the hydrology, the soils. They blow stuff up. They put things back. And I learned about this great, sensitive, unique ecosystem called wetlands, and saw how fragile it was and how much we had lost our wetlands in Kentucky. And I became enamored with that. So guess what I did? We had every Halloween, we were able to dress up as a character, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to create Swampy, the living wetland. So I took my fabric, I put on blue for the water that glistened. Next to that, I had the brown for the mud soils. And then outside of that, I had the green for the vegetation. And then I had my Swampy mask. And then underneath that, I put a music box, okay? And I was able to crank out swamp animals like frogs and gators. Wah, wah. I
love it.
And then I got on rollerblades. Rollerblades were big back in the day, right? So my office was there, and every day I would add something to the very door. And the very day of Halloween, I opened it up. I had dry ice coming out like fog, right? And then I cranked up the volume and it was going crazy, right? So you will see that a Swampy show, by the way. I liked your YouTube channel, by the way. You can see that on my YouTube channel as well. Lots of fun, but I do that on occasion because that way I can bring the outdoors wetlands to kid by cranking. I have like snakes and frogs, and sometimes I have goop attached, and the kids go, ooh, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's like being a kid again. You know, that's part of the fun creative, right? But
I love that. First one looks like you got the hat on you may have on now. And tell me what's going on in this picture.
Well, this is a picture of Swampy, and I have Swampy overalls, by the way, okay? Right. And I've got a blue that makes the word Swampy in front of it. And then I've got brown and green, but these are agricultural overalls that lets me talk to the farmers, okay? And I'm thinking about it there. And then this is my Swampy character, is a cartoon character that I created out of my mind.
Okay.
And my Swampy is like a living Swampy. He's a character. He's got the blue, the green, and the brown. And he points, and he's also Swampy, by the way, stands for soils are brown. That's for the S. W is for the waters, which are blue.
Okay.
A are for the animals, and that's red because animals are like red lifeblood indicators.
Right.
M is mankind, womankind, not black or white, but silver. P is green for our plants.
Okay.
And Y is for our youth, and it's yellow. And I think it's just a holistic thing. If you check out my sites, you'll see my acronym with different colored hearts, and each color of the heart is with each of the letters. So
now, did you come up with Swampy, or did you have some help with that?
no, all came up here.
That's the old creative juices, man.
Oh my, I lay claim to it, even though it sounds crazy.
Who's this?
Yeah, this is one of my mentors. His name is Jim Boswell.
Okay.
And he lives in Louisville. I live across the river, by the way.
Okay.
And we called him Old Cypress. So
nice. I love it. How long have you guys known each other?
probably about 6 years.
Really?
Yeah. But he's been my father that I never had.
I got you. Who's this young man?
There I am back in the orphanage, folks.
That's what I thought. Now, was your name always Kirt Glade?
Well, you know, I changed it in February 2018. It used to be Gary Wayne Hahn.
Okay.
But again, because I became so enamored with wetlands, et cetera, I changed my name. But yeah, it was Gary Hahn. Okay. And I'm probably about 8 there, I guess, 9.
Okay. That's cool.
Thick glasses, picked on, bullied a lot.
That was a picture from the orphanage, right? Masonic Home?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited for you to talk about this. This is a picture of Newsweek, I think from the 60s or 70s. You can explain what the cover's about.
Yeah, let me just share with this. Sure. This picture was the actually taken from orphans at the Masonic Home of Kentucky back in the day. Wow. And it was on Newsweek front page. And this was the year when Newt Gingrich was in Congress, and Congress was thinking about going back to these types of orphanages that we used to have. And by the way, I went in what's called a Masonic orphanage. My father was a Mason, and they helped take care of families, and they were able to take me in there. But this actual photo was from that.
That's great. This looks like a caricature, or what's going on here? I love it. It's a great picture.
Well, I did this because, again, I do a lot of crazy things, but that's Swampy, right, standing up with a tower, okay, and just being friendly, okay, and having the essence of the environment, but yet the urban, the people all around.
Okay, this looks like you're in an aquarium or so. This is a great photo. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, you know, this is when I was making my trips around the different states. As I've done Swampy, I go and see the major wetlands and waterways of each of the states. And while I was down in Georgia, I went to the Georgia Aquarium. Yeah. And they had this great freshwater aquarium. And these are big fish, and you're allowed to make different pictures of that. This one was, I'm a big fan about lifting weights. I grew up in the gym, right? And I'm a big advocate about being healthy as well. So that was kind of like me at the Georgia Aquarium.
That's awesome. And I love this one. Speaking of caricatures, this is a great photo here. How was that generated, or who made that for you?
I made that myself.
Really? And
a lot of things I will give kudos to Adobe. I'm a big fan of Adobe when they were young, okay? Before they really evolved. Photoshop, you know, was a few things. Live motion was a few things. But that's the other thing. Doing it on your own, you're able to learn tweaks and find ways to do kind of cool things.
That's great. That's pretty neat, man. You look like an interesting fellow there. And then this one looks like a picture. Oh wow! So this must be. Tell the story of this car.
Yeah, this is the picture of my car that was towed to the lot, and that's basically if you look at the car, okay, and if you can envision, it was four doors. The front door would have been where I was sitting when I came to. Yeah. Let me just tell you this real quick. I'm going to there, and when I came to, I had the engine sitting in my lap, and my finger was on it and steamed out. And I looked around. I'm like, this is really bizarre. What's going on? I saw broken glass. I saw blood. And as I was, you know, I view things like a movie. So I'm looking around, and I go all the way to the left, and I see my leg. I have a compound fracture. which means it's, you know, it's kind of protruding, right?
Right.
And I'm like, this is not good. Well, I said something and I scared them because they thought that I was dead, right? And then the nice thing when you're in this situation is we have something called shock, right? So I did something stupid. I start cracking jokes, okay? You know, I'm like, I'm John Wayne here. Give me a piece of wood and a shot of whiskey. Because they were getting ready to use the jaws of life, right?
Sure.
So anyway.
So my question is, what I assume your legs were crushed. Can you elaborate a little bit on how devastating the accident was to you physically?
Yeah, it broke 3 of my 4 limbs, Kurt. It gave me what was called mechanical pneumonia. That's when the lungs automatically filled up with fluid. And that was one of the big things. I couldn't hardly breathe. Yeah. And then also I had some brain trauma as well. Sure.
Wow, it's really amazing when you see that car, the fact that you're alive to talk to me.
Right.
Now I love this. Did you create this too, this Swampy?
You know, I did. And this answers your question, Kurt, when you asked me about something that I find challenging, like you mentioned about the environment, okay? Right. Sometimes people love the environment, but it's hard to get them to act on it. Sure. This is an example of that. This is actually in Western Kentucky. Yeah. In Kentucky, we reviewed the coal mines in Eastern and Western Kentucky. This is Western Kentucky. You can see the wetlands there, and you can see a drag line on the very right-hand side. And these are huge machines where they would dig down and pull up all this coal, right?
Right.
So I took that, and then I took Swampy as a rainbow on the horizon. And that's kind of something that it embodies the essence of what I was doing, helping the state regulate the coal industry, but also showing the importance of wetlands.
So this seems, this is an actual picture of you. I assume this was before the accident. I'm just guessing.
It was
much longer ago.
Yeah. I used to do modeling, by the way, with Cosmo.
Okay, cool.
And I just had took the time, got some nice pics. And
yeah,
that was
great.
A little bit back in time, but that was, I went several times to the tropics, Hawaii and the tropics. And nice. I tell a lot of neat stories about that as well.
What took you there? Just pleasure, or was there business, or both?
Well, you know, one of the things is Hawaii. My wife was married. Her brother worked in the Air Force Base on Oahu. And I'd always loved, guess where we went? They had this one place, it had a botanical garden, okay? And I just loved seeing all the ornamentals and all across the world. So that was really neat going to Hawaii.
That's great. Now this looks like it's somehow computer generated, but it looks like your grandchildren maybe?
Yeah, it is. That's my kiddos, I call them. Asher, and then Andrea B's in the middle, and then Morris is to the right.
That's great.
And yeah, they actually moved to New Zealand, Kurt.
Wow.
And so they're enjoying New Zealand right now, by the way.
Well, you know, they say if the world ever comes to the end, that's where you're supposed to go. For what it's worth.
Exactly.
It's like if everything goes to blank in a handbasket, it's to go to New Zealand, you can live out your life there. But
absolutely.
Hopefully we don't have to test that theory.
Well, you know, this is what I will share with this one thing. This is up close, a blue planet. There was a Voyager spaceship back in 1977. Yep. It was leaving our solar system, and it took one last shot towards the Earth. And what it showed was the smallest little blue pale dot. You could barely see it. And this is the essence of it close up, a living world. Okay. But it's also fragile. Okay. And what we need to do, we have a lot of issues on today, but number one, front and center, we really need to come to a sustainable planet. And I'm really big on clean water, the different types of wetlands, whether they be marines, estuaries, lakes, rivers. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm also into Earth Day and biodiversity.
That's great.
And the oceans.
That's great. Yeah, that I know what you're referencing. It's Carl Sagan's The Pale Blue Dot. He had him turn
exactly.
around, and he talks about all the horrors that humans perpetrate on themselves for a fraction of a dot. It's a very moving piece. It changed the way I thought on a lot of things. So this looks like your link tree, possibly.
Yeah, that's my link tree.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted to share that earlier, and I want to share it with you real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The funny thing is, I do have creativity. I use S's like Swampy, and on this I've got different levels. One of them's like the Swampy Spotlight. Then I've got Swampy Stories, and I'll include different stories that are big on the news, right?
Okay.
I've got a thing called Swampy School, where I work with kids involved with Swampy, and I involved with puppets, and I try to get involved also with STEM. Okay. And so that's what it is. And then also, I've got a YouTube channel. I've got songs on there, Swampy songs. And I think folks will really have fun with that, and also gain some more appreciation for the environment.
That's great. And this looks like something maybe some of your creative juices at work here. Well, that's you on the left. Who's that on the right?
Well, I'm not sure if anybody out there have ever seen the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams.
Oh, yes.
To the right there, that is Patch Adams. And a funny thing, Patch was up on the stage, and he had his clown outfit with his red nose, right? And I was sitting in the front seat, and I had my Swampy bib overalls, okay? So that's where Patch tried to commit suicide like 3 times early in his life. But he decided later on to become a doctor, and his mission was to return the bedside manner in the old days of the doctors to the medical profession. And he created an organization called the Gesundheit Institute in West Virginia.
Yeah, that was a heck of a movie. Robin Williams played him, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I really miss Robin. He was great, very creative.
Now, this is your book. Why don't you talk about that for a moment?
Okay, yeah, this is my Swampy and Friends book. And something that I decided, I actually did this as a PowerPoint, Kirt, earlier on. And I'm like, well, I'm going to turn the PowerPoint into a book. So this tells about Swampy, talks about the old days when the lands were more wild, okay? And we had more wetlands. We had animals ran more free, okay? And then later on, as things became more civilized, okay, a lot of the wetlands were taken away and replaced by buildings, okay? And Swampy and his animal friends are there, and they start to get sick, okay? And the kids love Swampy and the boardwalks, but Swampy gets sick, and they decide that they want to take care of Swampy. So they go to their parents, they get the doctor checks Swampy out, and they take action to protect Swampy. And that, in the gist, is how the book goes.
I love this, man. If this isn't colorful, soils, waters, animals, mankind, plants, and youth. I love it.
Yeah, and this is, it's got me in my Swampy overalls. You'll see the Swampy River at the upper right, okay? You'll see the Swampy character to my right. You'll see a few animals, which I have on my costume, and then the general information. That's kind of an older business card that I had, Kirt.
Sure. And then I love this next one. This looks like you've done a comic book cover.
Well, this is the amazing thing. This is what I tell folks in some of my speeches, Kirt. We go back in our days when kids read comic books.
Yep.
Okay. Saturday morning, kids had cartoons.
Oh,
right?
I was a big consumer of that.
Exactly. And it's so sad they've been locked up. We had so much fun. And a lot of people don't really realize, especially millennials and the younger people, what a great time that we had, and trying to bring that back a little bit. Trying to do that with Swamp.
It's some things are easy, you just bring them back, but it's kind of hard to get people to see the value in that sometimes. I don't even know where to start, so we'll let you run with it. Hollywood Squares just comes to mind, but
no. Well, I thought, Kirt, you were probably like this, and I can give you the app that does this. Okay. It takes your one face, and it puts you in each of these role models, right? So I've got a spaceman up there. I've got the medieval ages. I've got different things. I think I've got something there where I'm at the
like you're a pirate.
what was all the different ones.
Do you know the name of the app offhand? If anyone watches this that would like to know, do you know what it is?
If they want to drop me a line, I can send that to them. I'd be glad to do that. Right. I don't have it right off the bat.
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, that's pretty neat. Wow. So Kent, what's going on here? This is pretty remarkable. This is looks like around the mid 1970s.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was at the orphanage, one of the superintendents, Von Schluter was his name. They allowed him, the Masons, for us to take a trip out to New Mexico. And this is one of the places to go when you're in Scouts. They always ask you, have you been to Philmont? It's high adventure country.
Okay.
And this is a picture right around the Tooth of Time, a place there. I'm like fourth. You'll see me. I'm fourth from the right. Okay. If you can see that. But this is where we were. We hiked. We had backpacks for 120 miles. We ate freeze dried. We did rock climbing, rappelling. We shot black powder rifles. We panned for gold. Lots of fun things.
So you've got a UK logo here. I'm going to let you speak to that.
Okay, yeah. That's was my second college after Murray State, and went there. I had a couple of years pre-forestry. I finished up in forestry. I eventually ended up with 180 credit hours. But the neat thing about working, in a lot of ways, the different curriculum involved with forest, we had a summer camp, and we had to do rappelling, and we had to cruise timber. Okay. And but lots of good things involving forest growth management, knowing genus and species, okay, knowing how to cruise forest to make wood products, and how to, I was able to work with the Forest Service on a couple summers, and we got a chance to do all those neat things, surveying, we took care of campgrounds, a lot of neat things.
I guess we'll go into this. I'm afraid to ask. I think I got an idea.
I can't believe you're going to actually show that, Kurt. This one, remember I told you about I'm a film producer. I've got a series that I'm working on. The name of the series is called The Hydrant Zone.
Okay.
And my major character, Kirt Glade, is a time traveler. And he goes back into time and talks to famous and infamous people. And this is a picture of him like a pirate, right? Mm-hmm. And my first episode that I made involves 1945, where he lands 1945 and comes face to face with Hitler. Okay. And Hitler will not die because he's Germany.
Right.
And so he experiences the evil of Hitler. So when the bombs are coming, since he won't die, he what's called the rat line. He goes to the backside and he runs into Joseph Mengelé's evil laboratory, and they bomb and the plants come out. So evil attacks evil.
I love it. And this is another angle, I believe. Does this guy have a name?
Well, notice it's black and white. Okay. But that is Kirt Glade or Swampy. I've used both ways.
I got you. Okay, so anyone that sees this knows that it's Jennifer Aniston from Friends, especially if they live in America. But if not, I know the show is airs in syndication all over the world. She's probably one of the most famous actresses on the planet. But why on earth is she in your photos, Kent?
Well, I'll just say this: she's got a great energy about her, and I see not only her outward beauty, but I think she's also beautiful inwardly, and she's been very personable. Yeah. And I've always watched her movies when she was younger, and how I think she turned 50, but she's still so beautiful. The thing that I wanted to share with you, Kurt, I know you interview people at the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
And next year, it's my goal to invite Jennifer to the Kentucky Derby. Okay. And I will let you interview her next year.
Hey, man,
okay.
I'll just stop. I won't interview anyone else if you can do that. It's a real cute picture here of her. What is she doing there? I'm just curious.
I think she's thinking about theoretical physics there.
Is that what they call it? So you had said that you saw her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and you just fell upon it. You weren't looking for it, you said?
I was looking for it.
Oh, okay. At least you're honest.
Well, you know, and I hate this again. It's my curiosity. When I see something, yeah. I'm like, where is it in relation to where it starts and where it ends, right?
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those with us, Kent. And you know, I like doing that. It's an easy way to get a flavor and a feel for the guest, and doesn't require a lot of effort. So thank you for sharing those. That was a pretty eclectic group of 25 pictures, and you know, from black and white to color and to movie stars as well. And the reason why I like to do it is because it segues into this next question. Assuming everybody watches the MoxieTalk, you know, in its entirety, and what we call the legacy cut. And I think, again, if any human's honest with themselves, they will answer this question, yes, but I want you to explain it as well. Do you ever feel misunderstood? Simple question with as long an answer as you want to give. As Kent Glade, do you ever feel misunderstood?
Gosh, you know, I really do. And I think folks would understand why I do. I was not brought up in a normal family. Sure. I didn't have normal parents. Okay. A lot of people thought that I was adopted or whatever, maybe a little funny joke there, but no, for me, there was always something as far as security. Okay. Mm-hmm. And knowing that I was, to some degree, a lone wolf. Okay. Right. It was up to me to be powerful and to be also kind, but to live for another day. Okay. Mm-hmm. And to build upon that and my legacy, so that even though my parents aren't here, okay, that I can leave sure. Something good, and that will be a part of their essence, is a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that. What do you consider to be your why, Kent? I mean, you've changed your name even fairly recently in life, later in life, which I think is a pretty remarkable decision. What do you consider to be your why? In other words, what motivates you when nobody's looking? Is how I like to couch it. You know, I believe we have an external thing that we put on as humans to other humans when we go out into the world, so to speak. And then when we're in our quiet time and alone, or our tribe, you know, our immediate family, we have a different, I don't want to say mask, but we have a different aura about us. So what is your why? What motivates you?
Kurt, I think one of the major things that motivate me was my 41-ton rock truck auto accident.
Amen.
Brother, and just when I was there, knowing that I may never come back, and I had all these ideas. I feel like, what's his name? Schultz. The gentleman, I think Schroeder, he did the Schultz cartoon strip. But
Charles Schultz, Disney, Peanuts. Yeah.
Yeah, Peanuts. Yeah. And just like Disney, you know, he had all these great things to offer. Okay. But in an instant, they could have been gone. And that's the way that I feel. And the other thing right now that I'm still seeking is abundance. Okay. And I'm wanting, you know, I do a lot of these things myself. You can kind of tell I do them myself. I'm trying to connect with others who sure. love the environment. Okay. Who love social media, etc. And film. Was also going to tell you, as a film producer, I'm trying to make a TV show called Swampy and Friends. When I grew up, there was a show called Captain Kangaroo.
Oh yeah, I think it would be a great. You'd be Captain Kangaroo, I bet.
Exactly. I've got Kent. I've got Swampy. I've got the Swamp Princess. I've got Old Cypress. Okay. But then you know what they told me?
You've overcome a lot to get to here. Why not? I mean, somebody had to think of, hey, here's the way I look at that kind of stuff for children. If anybody can make, and I know that's not your motivation, but I always say that when I come up with something creative, you know, because I've got some screenwriting ideas I'm working on. I go, if somebody told you, I got an idea for teenage turtles that are mutants and they're ninjas, and they have the 4 Musketeers names, and we're going to have a hit on our hands, I'll be like, okay. And, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what, 4 or 5 movies, 84 series,
exactly
where I'm going. So, yeah, when anything comes to creative, I mean, that's why I believe the higher power gave us the power of imagination. You know, that's something exactly. that comes from the other realm, as I call it.
And, you know, I sent a letter, by the way, to Roy Disney, Walt's brother.
Okay.
because it's Florida and swampy. I'm like, what do you think about this? So they basically, I got a return letter with Mickey Mouse is staring out from a curtain, okay? But it's from an attorney saying that they do not accept ideas outside of the corporation, right?
Oh, Jesus.
And then within two years, they had their own character. Guess what the character's name was?
What?
Swampy.
I never knew that. Really?
Swampy the alligator. Yeah, check him out.
Well, I'll be.
But anyway.
Wow. Well, this is our, you're our 474th guest.
Woo-hoo.
It's you're a pretty interesting individual, pretty eclectic, eccentric, I think is fair as well. And the fact that you've really accomplished a lot and built your own family and built your own achievements and experiences and survived that 41-ton truck, which obviously I believe everything happens for a reason. I mentioned earlier my incident, which I don't know how I wasn't a paraplegic or in the graveyard. So it's same with you, I would suspect. So I believe that it's appropriate to ask this question. How do you want to be remembered? God forbid, you've had a close call already. You walk, we wrap up today, and for whatever reason, tonight, tomorrow, it's your last day on earth. How do you want to be remembered by family, friends, people you've impacted that maybe you don't really, obviously, we don't often always know who we impact. I think that's part of what we learn when we leave here. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, just while you've asked that question, I think I want to be called a creative adventurist.
I like it.
There's this young kid, and he's bullied, and he's having a hard time, and he gets out here, and then he goes ahead and regulates the coal industry, gets hit by a rock truck, then he goes to FEMA, then he goes to Hawaii, then I traveled to Alaska, got really good footage of a grizzly bear, came right up to the bus. You guys have to check that on my YouTube channel as well. But yeah, just doing stuff, going to Hawaii, gliding over Diamond Head, okay, being on a catamaran, all right?
Yeah.
These essence that people can do this, have a vision, do an affirmation maybe, okay, and connect with those that you're inclined to be around with.
I got you. That's I'm gonna. You had mentioned earlier about being present. I usually don't ask another question after the signature question I just asked that we've asked every guest, regardless of older, younger, their experiences. Would you do anything different knowing what you know now?
I would.
What's that?
I think that I would find some way, because I'm still dealing with right now, connecting with other like-minded people, okay, and being around creative people. I live in Kentucky, Indiana, nice folks, but not a lot of much creativity.
Agree.
As perhaps California, Florida, Atlanta, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But just being around creative people. In other words, Asheville in North Carolina, really beautiful creative community. So that's, if I had to do it all over again, I would be surrounded by other creatives. And it's been a little challenging not doing that and trying to seek out those that are creative, that have resources and know people. And, that's probably a little bit more because, again, it's, that's what I'm looking for, is connecting with folks via my link tree, my book, as a speaker. So, yeah.
Well, Kent, I'm really honored and humbled that you've come on here to be our 474th guest. And I want to mention to anyone out there in YouTube land, cyberspace, our website, we have an extensive built out website. If you want to learn more about Kent, watch this when it comes out, learn about our other 473 guests, just go out onto the internet, type in MoxieTalk with Kirt Jacobs. We're on all your social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We're on LinkedIn. We're even on medium.com. And we also would love to see you listen to us on all of our podcast platforms. We're on every major one out there. So if that's your style of consuming media, we'd love for you to follow us on there as well. Until next time, I'm Kirt Jacobs. Thanks for watching. Peace out.